Hey FBC students, this is Jordan Mims again. Just want to drop in and give you this week's preview for this Wednesday's message, which is part 4 of the Uncharted series, which means it's the last part in our series this week. And the message is entitled, Use What You Have. As we've seen in this series that at the beginning with week 1 in Nehemiah, we see that God gave Nehemiah a vision to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. He's laying on our hearts some kind of vision or some kind of calling or some kind of burden on our lives. And God wants us to press on towards that vision. And week 2, we saw how as we seek to accomplish the vision that God has given us, to go in that, to head on towards that calling, that oftentimes we'll come up against things that seem impossible. But God is the God of the impossible. And if he's called us to do it, he's calling us to step out in faith and to trust him and to obey. And he will remove those obstacles. He will do the impossible things. And he will receive the glory because of it. And then last week we looked at how oftentimes as we seek to accomplish this vision, we'll be asked to do some things that seem very risky. Maybe to our parents, maybe to our friends, maybe to even our church, maybe even to our culture. But when we're asked to do something and God's calling us to do it, and he is telling us to trust in him, it's the least riskiest thing that we can do. He may be calling us to give up relationships, securities, wealth, status. But if we're willing to trust in him and put our faith in him and what he's called us to do, it's the least riskiest thing to do because we're stepping out in God's will, and that's the safest place to be. And then this week we're looking at how each and every one of us have been given some kind of gift or a talent. And you may be wondering, how can I begin this journey on this vision or press into this calling that God's placed in my heart? And my challenge for you is to use what you have that you've already been given. The abilities, the talents that God has given you, the resources that you have as being a student in Rockport, Texas, some things that kids around the world or kids in other parts of the country don't have as a result of where you are, and begin to use those talents, use those gifts, use those resources to help the needs of others. We're looking at Matthew 25, the story of the talents. Many of you know that story, where the master goes away, but before he goes away, he gives his servants talents. And to one 5, to one 2, and to one 1. And the people, the 2 servants with 5 and 2 go and multiply their talents. But the one with 1 goes and hides it and just sits on it. And see, in the end, God, the master, we see as God blesses the ones that multiply their talents and use their talents. But the one that just sits on it, he actually receives punishment as a result of it. And so the Christian life is not something we just sit and we just live inactively or just idly. We're called to press on. We're called to walk into that vision or calling that he's given us. And so God isn't pleased with us just sitting there and being a good Christian. He wants us to press on to what he's wanting to use and use us and shape us and make us into. Behind me is a stained glass window. You'll see that this stained glass window is made up of a whole bunch of different little pieces of glass. And each little piece is very important because without it, it doesn't make a complete picture. And so oftentimes we're kind of like that one piece in the stained glass window. We represent part of the big picture that God is trying to paint. And sometimes we may think that our life is not that valuable or isn't that important, or the things that we can do are minuscule in the sight of what others can do. But we are important. The things, the gifts, the talents that you have, that God has given you and God is calling you to use, is super important to the grand picture that God is trying to create. And so I challenge you out with this. And so I hope you'll come this Wednesday. I hope to see you. I love you guys. Been praying for you all week. Can't wait to challenge you with this message. I know it's been challenging me. See you guys later.